our nation facing economic challenges. We had very high debt levels, high unemployment, volatile inflation, exchange rate instability, and minimal or no growth. There is the feeling that we have forgotten about that. We're in a new normal. Today, that new normal, we stand as a testament to the power of prudential management, strategic reforms, and the indomitable spirit of our people. Let me do a quick comparison of some key macroeconomic variables which will cement the point of how we have moved from instability to stability, from crisis to now being on the launch pad for growth. In 2016, our debt to GDP was approximately 120%. Today, projecting at the end of this fiscal year, in March 2025, we will be 68.8% debt to GDP. This is the lowest we would have been since the 1970s. I want us to appreciate the economic journey. We're just getting back to where we were in the 1970s. Unemployment in 2016 was 13.7%. Unemployment today is now 3.6%, the lowest it has been in our history. Youth unemployment, when I took office, was at 32%. Now it is at 10.4%. Since 2016, we have created 245,000 new jobs. This is at an average of 28,000 new jobs per year. Before that, we were creating maybe 50,000 jobs on average per year. Average annual inflation since my administration took office has been 5.7%, even with the COVID spike. 5.7%. This is after I've said the COVID spike, and we had that spike for approximately 3 years. And this is the lowest average annual inflation that has been achieved by any government since 1972. In the year immediately before we took office in 2016, the Jamaican dollar depreciated by 5.4% relative to the US dollar. In the last 12 months, the Jamaican dollar has depreciated 0.9%. In fact, the annual average rate of depreciation of the Jamaican dollar relative to the US dollar, the entire duration of my administration, has been 2.9%. Again, this is the lowest rate of currency depreciation by far under any political administration since 1972, the year I was born. This exchange rate study did not happen by chance or by good fortune. We have exchange rate stability because of two factors. One, we are now running a balance of payment surplus on our current account. In fiscal year 2022-2023, we achieved a balance of payment surplus of US $345 million, or 1.9% of GDP. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the first time Jamaica recorded a balance of payment surplus since 1966. was not just a one-off occurrence. In the 2023-2024 financial year, we again recorded a surplus of US $610 million, or 3.1% of GDP. We have a very robust foreign exchange reserve right now. Our net international reserve, when we took office, was somewhere in the region of about $2.3 billion. At the end of December 2024, our reserve stands at $5.6 billion US dollars. Again, the highest ever in our history. And I'm going to return to that point, because when I say these things, sometimes our public listening will say, you have all of this money reserve. Why don't you use it to do something? Without understanding, and if you take away the reserves, you take away the stability. It is the reserves that gives the stability. And in a highly politicized environment, especially when information is not always accurately interpreted, you can have perverse outcomes. And so I have to take the time sometimes to remind the public why it is we make the fiscal decisions that we make, that ultimately it is for the benefit of you, the consumer, the household. If we make bad economic decisions, even if they seem to bring short-term relief, you are going to pay for it dearly in the long run. So, another point that I would wish to emphasize to this gathering of investors is that Jamaica is the only country in the region with no foreign exchange control and a freely floating market-determined exchange rate. Investors will appreciate that. This is a place to come and do business. Our external credit rating, as measured by Standard & Poor's, has improved by 7 notches from the lowest level of SD selective default in 2013 to BB minus. We are now just 3 notches away from achieving investment grade. And if you listen carefully to what Gregory said, it is clear that our bonds are behaving as if, or rather the market is treating our bonds as if they are a safe harbor for investment grade. Can you imagine coming from selective default, being viewed as the economic basket case of the region? Clap yourself. Just today, I had sight of the results of the latest business and consumer confidence survey. The index of business confidence has surged to 149.3 points in the 4th quarter of 2024, an increase of 12.9% over the previous quarter and 7.3% overall for the year, or rather 7.3% over last year. In fact, the index is at the highest level since the pandemic and less than 2 points shy of its all-time high of 151 points, which was set in Q1 2019. Nearly 70% of firms consider it a good time for investment, up from 53% in the previous quarter. Now that tells you the resilience of the economy. Obviously, the previous quarter would have been impacted by Hurricane Beryl and other weather events that followed. But look how quickly confidence has recovered. Consumer confidence has rebounded in Q4 2024 with an increase of 4% over the previous quarter. Macroeconomic statistics, are one thing, But let us look at some other statistics. Let's take poverty. When my administration took office, the poverty prevalence was 21.4%. We reduced that to 11% in 2019. It shot up after 2019 to 21%. And we understand why. This was during the pandemic years. Now, the latest estimate is that poverty prevalence is about 12.3% in 2023. We expect that the next survey will have this below 11%. This is very important because in a society like Jamaica, where inequalities are considerable, it's one thing to preach to this audience about how well we're doing economically. It's another thing for the people who are struggling every day to recognize that the good economic results are translating into improvements for their everyday living. Let's look at the minimum wage. When we took office, the minimum wage was 6,200 Jamaican dollars or 51 US dollars per week. Now it is 15,000 Jamaican dollars per week or 96 US dollars per week. Not fantastic, but it is an improvement, and I can tell you there is more to come. This administration believes that we must share the economic progress and share it equitably. Our abiding mission is to lift people out of poverty. We must end absolute poverty in Jamaica. That is the abiding mission of this government. Let's talk about crime. I'm told I should mention this investor meeting, but there's nothing secret. You go on the internet, so let's deal with it and put it into context. Jamaica is improving its security. The challenge with the improvement in security is that it takes time for it to have an effect. I give you an analogy. Someone dropped in a pothole, and they called me. I spent 30 minutes on the phone with them. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I had to volunteer to replace a tire. Okay. 7 days after, please don't, I can't take any more calls. So 7 days after, the pothole was fixed. And I got a call to say, "Prime Minister, I see the work going, I see the roads being fixed, I like it." So fixing the pothole, fixing the roads, they have an immediate impact on the misery index. Almost immediate. But consider someone who lost a loved one to a murder. If I were to say the murder rate is cut in half, the perception lags. So the security issues take some time to take effect. And the truth is, the mobilization for security is far more complex than, let's say the mobilization to repair roads. So the security journey has been a long and arduous one. But we have made significant progress in the transformation of the JSE, the leadership, manpower, and material. Significant. Their investigative capacity has increased significantly. Their intelligence capabilities have increased significantly. Our domain awareness and control capabilities have increased significantly. We have made massive investments. That is why you're seeing 2 years of reduction in murders. 7.5% the year before, and now almost 20% this year. And you will continue to see reductions as the JSE and the Jamaica Defence Force and the other security entities execute Plan Secure Jamaica, which we laid in 2016. And that is having an effect, a real impact. And the biggest measure of that is that we've cut the number of gangs from over 300 to now just under 170 active gangs. And we continue to build their capabilities. The biggest impact, of course, is that major crimes declined by 14% in 2023. And they are now 40% lower than they were in 2015. In fact, we had a decline in major crimes in 2024 by about 8%. And in fact, in 2024, we are now reporting a crime level that is probably lower than what it was in 2002. So we are making significant impact on crime. The purpose of the comparison is to show that by any objective measure, Jamaica is in a fundamentally different place today than when my administration took office. No other nation in the world has matched the scale of Jamaica's economic turnaround in a decade. And I'm not the only one saying that. Gregory Fisher just said it in probably more eloquent terms than I have. The country has made significant strides. We have transformed our economy. We must now move to transform our society, transform our infrastructure, transform our health, education, make Jamaica safe, and make Jamaica truly the place of choice for people to come and do business, but above all else, to make Jamaica an affordable place to live. So Jamaica's economic progress over the last decade has been remarkable, but growth remains below the level needed to achieve our full potential. Historically, periods of growth were followed by years of decline. Today, we experience sustained, consistent growth. Yes, we may have some interruptions. COVID, Hurricane Beryl. But immediately after, 1 or 2 quarters after, you see the recovery starting. So, before the pandemic, we achieved 20 consecutive quarters of growth, followed by 13 consecutive quarters post the pandemic. The decline in the July to September 2024 quarter caused by Hurricane Beryl and the likely impact of Tropical Storm Raphael and heavy rains in the October to December period are temporary setbacks. I know some persons are heralding this as an harbinger of things to come. This is not so. The fundamentals of the Jamaican economy are strong. Despite these challenges, this represents the longest economic expansion in Jamaica's independent history. Longest period of expansion. However, growth remains anemic, averaging less than 1% per annum over the past decade. And that is the challenge. How do we take this economic stability and convert it into accelerated growth. That's the challenge. So as a small developing island state, our economy remains vulnerable to climatic events. And to achieve our national development goals, we must significantly accelerate growth to ensure a resilient and thriving future. That is what we mean when we say we're going to pivot. We're not going to take our foot off the step that we have planted it on, which is the fiscal responsibility and management of our economy and its stability. But we need to turn, as in the netball analogy, to face the goal. We need to make a turn to get onto another step, and that is the step of growth. And that is the pivot. That brings us to the next chapter. My administration is preparing to lead Jamaica into the next chapter. And we have given some definition as to what that chapter will look like. Having been on this path for the last decade, we can sometimes lose sight of the fact that stability was never the destination. Stability is the foundation. It is the foundation on which we will build. This is why in November 2024, I announced a pivot in our national economic policy direction, a pivot towards growth. The growth agenda comprises 6 key pillars, and the tagline that we're using of this pivot is Aspire. Access to economic opportunity for all, that is the inclusive growth agenda. Safety and security, we will continue to push safety and security. People, and our focus on human capital development. You know, Stephen mentioned labor productivity. That is what this is about. How do we build our human capital to produce more? That is training and education. Infrastructure development. Jamaica has aging infrastructure caused by lack of consistent investment. In other words, we went through almost 4 decades of disinvestment in our infrastructure. And when aged infrastructure meets epiphenomenal climate events and weather events that are outside of the normal, the destruction it wreaks on the infrastructure is far greater than what would ordinarily occur, which is why we experience all of these potholes and landslides and roads breaking up. When you put those 2 things together, the only way to overcome that is to grow your economy very fast so that you can rebuild the infrastructure, not to the old standards, but rebuild the infrastructure to new standards that can withstand the impact of climate change. That is what we're going to be doing in the next chapter. And then there is a reform of bureaucracy to improve ease, speed, and cost of doing business. You know, when the sociologists invented the term bureaucracy, it was not a pejorative. In fact, it was a compliment, especially for colonial governments, because they needed to have a bureaucracy to run an empire. And in fact, you really couldn't be an empire without a bureaucracy. Bureaucracy was such an important thing. But like everything else, they become self-indulgent. They exist solely to fulfill themselves. And it doesn't really matter that people who need to cross a bridge can't have the bridge. What matters is that you comply with all the rules in order to build that bridge. Oh God, that puts the politicians in a really difficult spot. because the people in Troy want their bridge, but we have to get all the approvals before we can build the bridge. So the question for us is, how do we comply and at the same time become more efficient? You can't give up the compliance because that's another way in which people won't get the bridge. But another question is, how do you increase the speed, change the processes, remove unnecessary regulations so that the compliance is easier, so that the people get the bridge? We have spent a lot of years in the last decade putting on all kinds of new legislation. We have layered very thickly regulations and all kinds of legislation, which may not all be relevant or properly aligned. It needs to be rethought, it needs to be re-engineered. And that is an entire process that government has to get involved in. And that is a part of our bureaucracy reform. We're not anti-bureaucracy. We are for efficient bureaucracy. And by the way, Jamaica is not the only country going through that. There's something called DOGE, or DOGE. And then economic diversification and development of new industries. If we're going to grow, we cannot continue to rely on the 5 or so pillars of our economy. We have to branch out into new areas. And we're going to have to be fearless in branching out into these new areas. You know, we are a service-based economy. And we're a service-based economy largely because the cost of energy is high. We have to figure out how to get the cost of energy low in Jamaica so that we can build out more manufacturing-based industries. So some people hear me talk about, nuclear, and it's all, why are we thinking about nuclear? But you have to think about renewables, thankfully the price of renewables, particularly solar, is coming down rapidly, technology is improving, battery capabilities are improving. But it's not going to give you the quantum that you need. And as nuclear technology is receiving now greater interest and new investment because of AI, that new investment will deliver a new era of nuclear technology in small modular nuclear reactors. It's not there yet, but it is going to take Jamaica 10 to 20 years to build up the human resource capacity to be able to manage SMRs. So let us not think small and think that we can't do it. We have a very small nuclear reactor at the University of the West Indies for over 30 years there. We are building a small nucleus of scientists there who can manage it. But if we're really going to think about Jamaica as an economic powerhouse, we have to solve the energy issue. And let's face it, I read somewhere where I see Microsoft is, or Google, one of them is planning to take over an old nuclear plant and run it a company. Come on, we have the capabilities. Recently I was in New York and I met a young lady and she said to me, Prime Minister, I'm a nuclear scientist. I work for the government of the United States and I really want to come to Jamaica to help with a nuclear program here. We have to start to think in that regard. Yes, there are challenges, yes, there are problems, but let us not close the door on it. Let's think about it very carefully. Let's develop the capacity and put ourselves in a position that should the technology become feasible, we are at the head of the line to implement. And that's why we have taken steps to form partnerships with Canada, to start to train our people to develop the capacity here. And even if we don't have a small modular nuclear reactor, having nuclear technical skills is still very good for our economy, for science, and in other areas. But the real diversification has to come from our people. Other countries have oil, they have gold, they have ports and canals, Jamaica has people. That's our goal. And for years we have been exporting that goal to other countries. Jamaica is a net exporter of talent to the world. There is a change for the next 4 years at least. Let me say no more.
Implications of the green drain until we get to that point.
We face a problem here in Jamaica where, when I say that we have a labor shortage, for some people are shocked.
There are implications.
Because around your community, they see a lot of young men digging holes in their
developing the human capital to ensure
they see a lot of young men unemployed,
can in fact
young women underemployed,
be available
not doing anything.
to fill the positions for those persons who are
Precisely why
migrating.
we have a labor shortage. Because we need skilled, trained labor into the workforce. So the investment in getting all our potential labor force trained, that is going to be the focus in the next chapter. Because we need to have not just low-level service, but we have to get higher-level services in order to grow the economy. The financial sector is one area in which we can expand rapidly and bring in more higher-level services. And in fact, we can make it an export industry. The services, the persons providing the services reside here, but do work remotely for people all over the world and companies and corporations all over the world. We have it now, we call it the BPO, the global services sector, but we must improve the level of skills to get higher value services to bring in greater revenues into the country. And that is going to be a target focus for the government in the next chapter. So, Aspire is designed to create a virtuous cycle of peace, productivity, and prosperity. At its core, it is the recognition that growth must be inclusive, equitable, and resilient. We envision a Jamaica where every citizen, regardless of their background or circumstances, has the opportunity to thrive. Let me be clear, this pivot to growth does not in any way mean that we're going to abandon fiscal prudence. I have to say that, because I don't want any misinterpretation. We will never go back to the days of run with it, not under my watch. We have worked too hard and sacrificed too much as a country to ever go back to that. Good fiscal management and macroeconomic stability are now business as usual for my administration. We have been putting out quite a bit of information on some of the pillars of Aspire. Let's talk a lot about security, infrastructure. I believe we need to say a little bit more on skills. But I want to focus this evening on improving the ease and cost of doing business. Reducing red tape and bureaucracy is central to Jamaica's growth agenda. To achieve rapid economic growth, we aim to become the most business-friendly and citizen-focused country in the region. Many current approval, permitting, and regulatory processes were designed during a period of fiscal constraint. And that is the reality. With our debt to GDP ratio now significantly reduced, it is time to streamline these systems. We will simplify approvals, reduce wait times, and eliminate outdated barriers and unnecessary layers of bureaucracy. This effort benefits not only large investors, but also micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Efficient government processes will also make it easier and faster for citizens to interact with public agencies. We are determined to end the outdated notion that efficiency compromises quality. I'll put it another way. If it didn't take long to be done, it wasn't done well. We are the country of the fastest man alive. We must translate that speed on the track to the speed of doing business. To drive this transformation, I will appoint the Speed Task Force, streamlining processes for efficiency and economic development. Speed. And we will do that by the end of February. The task force will identify bottlenecks, recommend actionable solutions, and deliver tangible outcomes within specified timelines. Whether through a single team or a rotating group of focused individuals on specific areas, the mechanism will ensure Jamaica's business environment meets world-class standard. We are aiming for business at the speed of thought. We are implementing a phased process of digitalizing government services that interface with businesses and citizens. The days of standing in long lines and navigating through mountains of paperwork will come to an end. We will be rolling out end-to-end digital systems for business registration, tax filing, and permit approvals. Our e-government platforms will be designed to ensure that e-services are accessible anytime, anywhere, and on any device. The foundation upon which all of these digital services will be built is the new digital national identification, which has already gone live and is scheduled for full rollout early this year. I got my NITS card, and I give you a little joke. So I got my NITS card, the Governor General got his, and a few others in the pilot phase. And some other persons have got. So one person who got the NITS card went to the bank with the NITS card. And the teller took the card and said, "It's what is?" Stephen, you're laughing. You know, there will always be some skepticism, some fear of technology, some resistance. Let me say that the NITS card by law is the only identification you need if you present it. It is the national identification card. So once you present that card, no bank, no other entity should be asking you to present some other form of identification. It is the most comprehensive and robust identification system that Jamaica has. The technology behind it is cutting edge, and it is the foundation on which we will build the digital society. The government is modernizing Jamaica's legislative and regulatory framework to position the country as an international business and financial service hub. Recent legislation has raised the participating share capital limit for the junior stock exchange, the junior market companies, from 500 million to 750 million. You mentioned that. Reflecting strong support for this market, which now boasts 48 listed companies with a market capitalization of $148.5 billion as of December 2004. I believe somebody was whispering to me, when is it going to take effect? So the legislation has been passed in the lower house. It goes to the Senate on Friday. I'm certain it will pass the Senate there. And then it goes to the Governor General for his royal assent. And then it becomes law. So within a matter of days, that will be the new share capital limit. While Jamaica already has a robust financial sector, further modernization is essential to meet international standards. The Jamaica International Financial Services Authority, JSE, and I just pause here to say that from my first time in cabinet, which was in 2007, by 2009, we said we were going to establish Jamaica as an international financial services center. To this day, it has not happened. We have passed a lot of legislation. I can't blame that totally on bureaucracy. Much of it is policy driven. Sometimes governments say they're going to do it, lack of commitment, and it doesn't get done in intervening circumstances. But as I stand here today, it is our intention to ensure that we complete the legislative framework to ensure that Jamaica can become an international financial service center. We have passed the Partnership General Act, we have passed the Partnership Limited Act, we have passed the Trust Act, we have passed the Trust and Corporate Services Providers Act, and the Segregated Accounts Companies Act. And the final piece that we now need to pass is the Limited Liabilities Company Act, and this is being refined to align with global standards. This act aims to provide a more business-friendly framework than the Companies Act, which what we will do is make this new act familiar to the global community. This legislative suite reflects the government's commitment to creating a modern business environment that supports both local and foreign enterprises while ensuring compliance with global standards. It will offer new business structures, attract investments, and solidify Jamaica's place as an international business hub. I want to talk a little bit about tax reform. Reforming Jamaica's tax system, including customs, is a critical focus of our government for sustainable economic growth. Despite facing the worst global health and economic crisis in a century, my administration has delivered 9 consecutive budgets with no new taxes. Read my lips. 9 consecutive budgets with no new taxes. Not even a tax on imported food items. But alongside that, we have given significant tax reductions and tax give back, a remarkable achievement for a developing country. First time ever that we have given a tax give back recently, and people are still getting it. We are committed to further simplifying tax structures and streamlining processes to reduce compliance burdens and foster growth. Expanding online tax payment systems and tax administration services are key steps. Additionally, tax incentives and regulations are being viewed to enhance competitiveness and drive sustainable economic growth. And these are some key initiatives. We are exploring tax legislation to incentivize repatriation of businesses, including their activities, associated assets and profits to Jamaica. So we know that there are many Jamaican companies that have chosen to domicile in various other jurisdictions. We want to bring you back home, and we will make it very favorable for you to do so. We are moving forward with the long talked about project to consolidate the various payroll taxes into a single payroll tax deduction. Again, it started in 2007.
That's what I was supposed to say.
And it meandered through administrations, just didn't get done. I remember when it was first posited by former Prime Minister Bruce Golding. We are now well on our way to have it done. In fact, I've given the tax authorities a deadline. I won't say a deadline publicly yet, but they have a deadline. And I received an update from the Ministry of Finance and the Tax Administration of Jamaica on the project, and we are targeting implementation of this by January 2026. So by January 2026, we should have the single social contribution payroll system established. But I've given them an earlier deadline to make sure that the system is actually up. We are exploring an increase in the threshold at which small businesses need to register and account for GCT. In 2019, my administration increased the threshold from $3 million Jamaican dollars to $10 million Jamaican dollars, and we are looking at a further increase to remove this burden from small businesses. We are looking at revamping the urban renewal tax credit with the aim of enhancing its effectiveness. This involves restructuring its framework and expanding the geographical areas eligible for this incentive. By doing so, we can attract greater investments into underserved communities, transforming them into economic hubs. For example, urban centers in each parish to create new hubs for economic activity that will ultimately grow into vibrant local economies. The first of these is the Morant Bay Urban Center. Now, I don't know if you have gone that side of the island recently. I urge you to just take a drive out to the Morant Bay Urban Center. It is the first purpose-built town in Jamaica. That's what it is going to turn out to be, on 25 acres of abandoned factory land. Some of you might remember in the heyday of Jamaica's production, the Goodyear factory. And we have converted that into a new urban space to complement the new road that is there. Go and take a look at it. And that will be the model. We will be building an urban center in close proximity to existing towns as a strategy of removing the congestion out of the town, bringing in new business and new energy, and developing the old town for their historic and cultural assets. So you have the new Morant Bay Urban Center, and then you will have the old town of Morant Bay, where we will put a museum, we will develop their park, we will improve their streets, develop the historic houses that are there, and turn it into a real attraction and create an urban space in addition to a suburban space where persons can live. That's the vision, Jamaica, the place of choice where you can live, work, do business, raise your families, and retire in paradise. So to complement this, we will be creating tax credits around these urban spaces. So if you're looking for businesses to invest and areas where you want to allocate capital, the development of urban spaces is going to be the new game in town. And I know NCB Capital Markets will have participated in the new urban center. And this is to improve our overall infrastructure. Now, to encourage businesses to modernize and retool their facilities as well as for investment in technology, we're considering the implementation of accelerated capital allowances. This measure would support enhanced productivity and competitiveness, especially in key industries that drive our economy. And 6, my administration has always been very supportive of the capital markets, whether it is the support for the junior market, the reduction in stamp duties and transfer taxes, or reduction in the tax on dividends. Now, I can't say too much at this time, but we are exploring a reduction in the rate of tax on dividends from the current rate of 15%. Further to that note, in support of wealth creation, the government has facilitated public ownership of national assets via the stock exchange. In the same vein, the government, and we're doing more, the government will very soon be divesting its 20% shareholding in Trans-Jamaica Highway Limited, held through the National Road Operating and Construction Company, NROC. This will be undertaken through a public offer for sale. So that is going to be something that the capital markets can look forward to. Also, later this year, the Port Authority of Jamaica will be divesting a percentage of its BPO assets, again, through a public offer for sale on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. And before I close, I want to say a few words on the relationship between the cost of doing business and the cost of living. There is a close and circular relationship between the cost of doing business and the cost of living. When we improve the ease, speed, and cost of doing business, efficiency gains allow businesses to lower prices for customers. Conversely, inefficiencies, slow bureaucracy, and higher taxes or fees raise the cost for businesses, which are eventually passed on to consumers as higher prices. The high cost of living, exacerbated by global inflation from post-COVID supply chain disruption, remains a significant challenge. Food, energy, and transportation costs are the main contributors to the high cost of living. The government has provided subsidies for transportation, reduced the GCT on residential electricity, which we plan to do from 50 to 7%, and we are planning other measures. We also have measures which are now focused on reducing food costs through agricultural improvement and support for local farmers. Improving the ease, cost, and speed of doing business is not just about fostering investments, but it is also about transforming the lives of people. Every reform and bottleneck removed contributes to a more prosperous, equitable, and inclusive Jamaica. In closing, I am optimistic about Jamaica's future. The economic environment is favorable for businesses, entrepreneurs, workers, citizens. My administration remains committed to building on our successes, creating an environment where businesses can thrive, investments can flourish, and all Jamaicans can benefit from economic progress. Together, we will achieve peace, productivity, and prosperity. I wish you all a very productive and successful conference. Thank you, and God bless.
Prime Minister, if you will, we just want to have you a few more minutes back on stage. We have a special presentation that I'd like to make to you for your 9 consecutive years of commitment to this conference. Okay. Dr. Marlene Street Forrest would like to make a presentation to you. And thank you for that inspiring address and your vision for Jamaica's future. Thank you again. Dr. Street Forest, and I ask you to just remain as a bit longer. Okay, please give us a little bit longer. I'd like to invite the chairman of the JSE, Mr. Stephen Whittingham, to join us on stage. You know, just about here. We'd like to honor outstanding individuals and organizations who have made significant contributions to our financial community. First, we recognize Dr. Marlene Street Forest for her 2 decades of dedication to the Jamaica Scouts. And I really sincerely join the Prime Minister in saying, I'm really going to miss you. I'm sure her husband Franklin will be happy.
People are leaving. No, it's okay. The contribution.
Okay, we'd also like to acknowledge Mr. Gregory Fisher for his impactful contributions to emerging markets and just being a great friend of this country.
People getting grumpy and classes. Absolutely not.
Greg has been much right from the outset and stuck to it, and hey, we are very grateful for his commitment. Finally, we extend our heartfelt appreciation to our valued partners for 20 years. So the following companies will now receive awards. The Jamaica Observer.
Not much.
Let's hear it for the Jamaica Observer. Chairman.
But that's such a
We're not done with you yet. Who's here from the Observer? Or have they left to write the story, unfortunately? Jamaica Observer. Here she is. Yeah, these are 20 years of ongoing commitment. Next, Stephen Clinton, we've asked you to come up here as well and make a presentation to the next organization, C&W Business. C&W Business. Anyone here from C&W Business? If not, I'll be happy to take it. Okay, stay right where you are, Steve. Let's move. Television Jamaica TVJ. 20 years of ongoing service. Anyone here from TVJ? Okay, moving right along. Oppenheimer. Is our next receiver? Oppenheimer. Anyone here from Oppenheimer? Okay, I know for sure NCB Capital Markets Limited. Anyone here from NCB? Okay. And of course, earlier this year, we lost someone very significant, and a man with a lot of vision. but his legacy lives on. The next organization we're honoring is Pulse Modeling Agency. I'm thinking of Kingsley Cooper's. Pulse Modeling Agency. Okay, and so while the award is being presented to the Pulse Modeling Agency, we just like to okay, so as we said before, these are for 20 consecutive years of service, and I think they deserve a very special round of applause. That's commitment and stick-to-itiveness. Now, we'd also like to honor our other sponsors, Jeffries, NCB Capital Markets, Jamaica Observer, Pegasus, TVJ, Massey Group, JMMB, Sagicor Group, Deloitte, GK Capital, Burrito Investments, Flow, Foxwich, Oppenheimer, CIBC, Caribbean Assurance Brokers, Trans Jamaica, JBDC, IDB, Pulse, Worthy Park, Intelligent Media, JPS, and PSOJ, and of course the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Another round of applause. Without these organizations and persons, we wouldn't be able to do this. That's a fact. Okay, so a number of persons have really gone above and beyond to make this event again possible, and so thanks is in order, and to do the honors, I'm going to ask the Group Business Development Manager, Mr. Andre Gooden, if he would do the vote of thanks for us. Andre? There you go.
Nice time. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank our Master of Ceremonies, who I believe has done, if not all, most of these 20 editions of the Stock Exchange Conference. Well done, Michael, and we look forward to your continued support. I would also like to thank Reverend Dexter Johnson, who continues to lead us in bringing some solemnity and some spirituality to our proceedings. Year after year, several times he has done it, and we thank him for making the time to be with us and to continue to support us. So our welcome was done today by none other than Dr. Marlon Street Forrest, and we want to thank you for those words, of course, of welcome. As usual, very warm, but we also want to thank you for your vision and motivating us and making us believe in ourselves as the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and that reminding us that what the Jamaica Stock Exchange can achieve is not really confined to the shores of Jamaica. That is something that will live with us. Thank you very much for your years of service and your commitment to this particular event. So our chairman, Stephen, reminding us that we are here to make access to capital available to all, not just some. And also reminding us of the transformative benefits of economic growth, which we really want to embrace. And thus, as you sit there with your citation, revolutionizing investments, thank you for recognizing the Jamaica Stock Exchange role in innovation and economic growth. And thank you again for NCB Capital Markets' commitment to this event over the years. And beside you, of course, Greg Fisher, for your commitment to the Jamaica Stock Exchange for the last 20 years. I mean, I personally have been reading and listening to you for in excess of 20 years. And every time you speak, I learn something else. Not just about the capital markets, but about the Jamaican capital markets. So we thank you, Greg, for your commitment, and we look forward to your continued support as well. Steve Higgins, what can we say about Steve Higgins? But wow. Greg will talk about portfolio diversification. And that is evident in Steve's repertoire, which he showed us tonight, a wide repertoire. Thank you very much, Steve. And for being a continued ambassador for Jamaica in your travels across the world. Thank you to the members of the diplomatic corps who have been here with us and who continue to support us every year. Several of them have left, but some of them are still here. We thank you all for being here. I want to acknowledge Ambassador Fermin Quiñones, Cuban ambassador to Jamaica, and his charge d'affaires, Rolando Davia Gallardo, High Commissioner Derek Murray. Those of you born before 1970 would know Derek Murray as the outstanding West Indies wicketkeeper for many years, and we still revel in the glory of those days for obvious reasons. Prime Minister, we thank you for realizing and accepting the challenge of facilitating growth. We now need to actualize that vision. And we thank you for also recognizing that government bureaucracy is sometimes a hurdle to doing business, and we will be following very closely for measurable improvement in that. And we have some team members, or at least one, who really could serve very well on that committee to reorganize the government bureaucracy. Every year you come here, Prime Minister, and you bring us some good news. The last couple of years you brought us a lot of encouragement, but we didn't get any really good news. But this year, we thank you for your vision in terms of moving forward to the with the International Financial Services Center. The firm timeline for increasing the threshold of the junior market, which you said is within a few days. We thank you for that. Payroll reform initiatives, revisiting the tax on dividends. These are all stimulants for our market, and we thank you for them. The only problem is that I know that you still left something for the Honourable Minister to come and present to us tomorrow. He didn't give us everything, I'm sure, Madam Minister. So we'll be here bright and early in the morning. The Master of Ceremonies has already thanked our several sponsors. I thank you again. I'm not going to go through the list again. I have 2 more days in which I can do that. But every sponsor, major, minor, whatever, is a sponsor. And your contributions to the success of this event over the years cannot be discounted. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to 2 more days of excellent interaction, networking, and let's do business. Thank you very much, everyone. See you in the morning.
Thanks, Andre. Nice time, indeed. Nice time. Ladies and gentlemen, what an incredible way to kick off this milestone conference.
Thank you all so much for joining us for this live stream from the Jamaica Stock Exchange's annual Investment and Capital Markets Conference. This is the 20th year. I trust that you have benefited from the presentations. Join us again tomorrow, God willing. Have a good evening. Bye.
I'm Michael Anthony.
Last week.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Last week.